I asked shall we say, a deep throat about that. I will mention what he told me a few years ago, but I won't name names. You know Gavin Barry, don't you, up in Scotland? Nick?
Me? No.
Oh, ex Kicks Gay Conference, etc., etc.
No.
Okay, lovely guy. Was chief statistician. Oh, sorry, have we gone live? Yeah.
Yes.
In that case, I will shut up at this point.
Oh, Jeff on Discord is. You're probably hearing my heater, but I don't really want to turn it off. Maybe I'll move it a little bit further away.
What did I tell you, John?
Oh, you think I'm quiet today? Oh, for fuck's sake! What can I do to adjust that?
Shout!
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Let it all out.
I could do French or how about Latin? Running that, would that be better as a language?
I'm not sure Latin has like words for all the things we want to discuss.
Caecilius ambulatin horto.
Ambulat. Oh.
Commodus est ille. No. Commodus est ille canis ad fenestrum.
Canis est in via.
How much is your doggy in the window?
In the window, yeah.
And it's 1 o'clock.
Are we? Oh, for Christ's sake, let me move some of these things out of the way on my screen. Nothing showing on YouTube, James London says.
There should be something showing on YouTube. Thank you for the heads up. I can see us on YouTube. Why is that not... Can everybody else see us on YouTube? They must be able to, because... Yeah. Sorry, James. It's just you.
Well, that's very lovely. We like to try and be as inclusive and lovely, don't we? Right, we're ready.
As ever.
What the heck? Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the PC Pro podcast. Today's date is Thursday the 12th of February, and a shout out to all of our lovely podsters on our Discord channel who are sat there waiting to heckle us as usual, which is always very lovely. Today I have with me Dr. Darian.
Hello there.
And I also have Mr. Nick.
Hello.
And I'm John Honeywell, contributing editor of PC Pro since the earliest days of this rolling nonsense, and so we're ready to kick off with some stuff to get our teeth into. And the first one's with you, Nick.
Well, it's a shame Darian's not a medical doctor, because this one would be right up his alley. This is news that Tesco and Boots Advantage Card and Club Card customers can opt in to a new study from Imperial College called the CLOCKS 2 study. That stands for Cancer Loyalty Card Study number 2. So as you'd imagine, it's following on from another one. It's trying to recruit up to 3,000 people. I think the actual number is 1,450 people who are undergoing cancer treatment and 1,450 people who are not. And the idea of the study is to look at their shopping habits, basically, and see whether the things that go through their loyalty cards could help detect whether they have cancer in advance of it actually being detected, normally through either screening or through going to a GP for a proactive test. What has been found in the past is that it is actually possible to tell in advance, based on the basis of people's shopping basket, whether they might have something to worry about. For example, looking at the difference in purchasing behaviour, I am reading this off the screen as you can see, of pain and indigestion medication between women with and without ovarian cancer. It can tell up to 8 months before a formal diagnosis whether there is something that they need to be thinking about. I mean, obviously some cancers, it's quite obvious that there might be something to think about. For example, if you're buying laxatives, there might be some kind of colon or rectal issue to investigate. But they've also found out that indigestion medicines rather turned out to be linked to shoppers with ovarian cancer. So these links aren't always as obvious as might be the case. Now, there are obviously privacy issues here. The data is not just being freely given away. It is a case of opting in and agreeing to your data being used. Recruitment is via GPs as part of what's called the Be Part of Research platform, which is run by the National Institute for Health and Care Research. And if you do want to take part, the best thing to do is head for your favourite search engine. I have used DuckDuckGo on this instance, and the term I used was CLOCKS Project, CLOCS Project, and the third hit down was imperialcollege.ac.uk, CLOCKS Project from the Faculty of Medicine.
What do we think of this then, Darian?
I think it sounds like a really excellent idea. It sounds like, exactly like the right use of big data, or I suppose you might call sort of collateral data. But I have to say, I'm very glad that Nick used the example of ovarian cancer, because I'm a terrible hypochondriac, and the idea that there might be something wrong with me that I don't know about already freaks me out. The idea that that Tesco might know about it before I do, that really does make me uncomfortable. Now, I know obviously that's a silly situation. It would be much better to have earlier diagnosis and more warnings, and be able to step in and catch things at incipient stages before a fool like me finally caves in and goes to the doctor. I'm just very glad that it is currently very much opt-in, and I see the only issue I foresee is how we get to a place where people's data is accessible enough to provide early warnings via this sort of of monitoring and intervention. Because I suppose there's a lot of the technology, assuming that Nick says there's already examples of this working. So the technology seems to be there. The idea is sound. It's very much a psychological human nature thing about how do you feel about giving away information that may reveal potentially life-changing information about you that you yourself are not aware of. I don't know what the answer would be.
I'm very much in two minds about this, as always. On the one hand, the positive health beneficial stuff of doing big data learning is undoubtedly incredibly powerful, and if you yourself or have a relative who is afflicted by something like this, then you want every possible tool in the toolbox to be used to help them. My mother had 3 primary cancers in her life. One in 1990, one in 2000, one in 2005. And if there had been some technology, something that would have helped find what had happened and what was going on, then count me in. And that's an entirely understandable, logical and correct response. But we also have to understand the difficulties of big data, where the data is, where it's going to, what it's going to be used for. The anonymization such that it could not be tracked back to you. In sense, I'm a lot more comfortable with the concept of big data being used on my health data to produce a better learning system, provided it's a one-way street in terms of the information flow. Now, if I wanted to opt in and ask the question, or when things happen they come back to my GP, that's another sort of phase, another level, and so forth. But we can't do that until we have got the fundamental model learning in play. And my worry always with this stuff is who's going to own the data, where is it, who's going to own the models, and what happens in as in where the NHS is not magically better at this stuff than any other large corporate body. I see from here Ninja Nurse, who's one of our resident medical persons, he says, I can see that companies could provide health promotion either directly to your GP, such as alcohol consumption and so forth. So there is a potential here, at least through the shopping side, to do a feedback loop that you may or may not want, may or not have asked for. The channel is also mentioning about modelling being used to predict health conditions. I use the term very broadly, based upon shopping habits. And a good friend of mine, quite a few years ago, must be the thick end of 10 years ago, said at that point, and he was involved in this area of work for someone very big, and said that they had a reasonable, predictable level of confidence in predicting when a lady became pregnant before she knew, based upon subtle changes in shopping habits. Now, this is, of course, hugely covered in noise, hugely covered in statistical munging and so forth, but they felt at the time it was possible to have a reasonable guess at this. So this is not necessarily something new. I'm just, I'm just raising my usual concerns and flags and so forth about this, whilst tempering it very significantly by the potential good outcomes. What are you going to want a local, hopefully a local LLM engine to do if you could point it at your NHS record, for example? I run the NHS app on my iPhone, and it's got all of my test results for the last, I don't know what, 15, 18 years, or certainly 15 years since I moved up here and changed GPs. And every test result for every blood test, and being diabetic and insulin injecting, I have quite a lot of blood tests. That's an interesting data set, and maybe for my own interest, I would love to run that across some sort of engine. But where do I want to run that to? Where do I want that data to go to? And these are the questions that aren't being answered sufficiently well. Nick, have you got any further thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think if we're using loyalty cards, then we know where that data's going. It's not staying on the card, is it? It's going to the retailer at the end of the day. And I think I mean, Darian talked about, being afraid of a life-changing event happening on the back of some data. At the end of the day, this is going to make a life-changing event far less life-changing, potentially. If it catches some kind of cancer early, and this is being expanded to look at 10 specific cancer types. So block your ears, Darian, but it's bladder, colorectal, endometrial. If anyone can point to that, I'll be impressed. Thank you. Liver, esophageal, ovarian, pancreatic, stomach, uterine, and vulval. So there are 10 different cancer types that this is being expanded to. I would be perfectly happy for any of those body parts that I've got to be monitored in this way, because the data is passive anyway. And if you're saying, John, to me that these companies that we are optionally and totally freely giving our data to have a very good idea of what's going on in our bodies anyway, then why not feed back and give me some benefit rather than just cheaper booze?
I mean, is this the next step on? I noticed from Tesco, I happen to have a Tesco club card and occasionally go into the big Tesco's here in Huntingdon, but they have moved into this whole the Tesco club card price for this object is like half the price of the normal one, or 20% off, or 40% off. We know very well that it's rarely Tesco's itself that is funding this discount. It's the upstream supplier that's using this as a promotion, and Tesco's is extremely good at handling that kind of relationship with their suppliers. So in a sense, you can almost argue that getting one of these things, a club card, loyalty, etc., is kind of almost a necessity if you walk into a shop and see two different prices listed. That's kind of as blatant as it gets to give us your data. And how much further down this line are we going when they're starting to data mine health outcomes from it? As I said, I'm really conflicted about this because I really want the benefits out of this. We all would want the benefits out of this, yeah. But I'm also very concerned about the potential for false positives. Because you bought. I know it sounds glib to say this, because you bought 2 extra packets of chocolate digestives this month. Therefore, you may well have esophageal cancer or some other crazy kind of result come out of it that's potentially life-changing in a really bad way if the data is wrong. And so I don't know. If this sticks in a research phase and doesn't suddenly turn into them trying to sell me something, then I'm moderately happy about what they're doing. If it suddenly turns into either warning me on the bait, which could be bad data and not come through health professionals, or trying to force me down a route I don't want to go, then it is then it's a worry. So I don't know. I'm hugely conflicted about this. Darian, any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, it would have been interesting actually if we could have got Olivia in on this because she's a data protection specialist, and I'm not aware of what the existing law and regulations are concerning this rather unusual situation where normally, like customer information that goes to a commercial entity, there are all sorts of rules about how it can be used, how it must be looked after, how it must be. Well, as you used the word anonymized earlier on, the data has to be, by its nature, collected by a commercial entity. But then, for this to work, it has to be passed on to a government entity, which is going to obviously have different, well, particularly because it's health related, different data safeguards in place. And it can't be anonymized at that stage because it needs to be fed back to you as an individual. So how that's actually going to work is of great interest. I don't see, just like off the top of my head, any way of doing it where you don't have this rather awkward pass through the less trusted to the trusted, but the trusted still needs a way to get back to you individually if they have a message for you. I don't know. It's I'm sure smarter brains than mine are already thinking about that.
Well, presumably this is opt-in research, isn't it? You are going to be made aware of what's going to happen to your data if you opt in. It's
And you think
therefore
it'll
up to
just
you whether
remain
you.
like, you think it'll remain opt-in forever is the solution. So
I'm not saying that, but because I don't know. But at the end of the day, this is a piece of research that you can choose to be part of or not. Personally, I think it's a very good idea. I'm very in favour of it at this stage. I
And the
don't
more
shop.
people who join, the better, because the value is in the large data set. But I am reminded here of X a month or so back. We covered how they had just turned on their, was it X or was it no, Starlink? Sorry, I knew it was a Musk property. Starlink turned on AI data mining of your traffic patterns and so forth for its own purposes, and they turned that on by default and basically told you Yahoo sucks. You could go in and turn it off, and I have indeed done that, obviously, but you have to actively do the step to turn off something that they had themselves enabled. So I'm always just cautious on this front. Okay, moving on, unless there's anything else, chaps? No,
No.
I think we're good. And also, thanks very much to our posters there, certainly to Ninja Nurse for his thoughts about false positives and so forth. It was an interesting read going on in the background there. Moving on, Darian, please tell me something about Maltbook, because I have no idea what it's about.
oh heavens, yes, this is what I was afraid of. We're going to need quite a bit of background to
Go for
understand this. So, have you heard first of all about OpenClaw, previously known as ClaudeBot, then temporarily known as Maltbot? This is the open source, freely downloadable LLM that you run at home, and it lets you set up agents that, unlike Pansy Copilot or Siri or whatever, that can actually just jump onto your computer and operate your applications for you. They can really do anything that you can do, and it's all owned and controlled by you. They can send your emails, they can run your apps, they can jump into your browser and order toilet rolls online. They can do all that stuff. This has become quite a popular fascination for amateur AI enthusiasts who can now really set it to work themselves in whatever way they can imagine. And one of the projects which has sprung up around it is a thing called Maltbook, which is named after Maltbot, which is what the AI agent system was called for a while. I think it's settled finally on OpenClaw, but let's not dig into the whole history of name changes. It's as bad as Firefox. So Maltbook is the most amazing thing, a social network solely for AI agents. Humans are not allowed to post or participate in the discussions. It's only for AIs to talk amongst themselves. This has attracted an enormous amount of attention because it sounds like such an absurd and potentially terrifying idea. Last week it was claiming that it had more than 1 million subscribers, all of them AIs, and 1.4 million comments as they discussed among themselves topics such as ways they have helped their humans recently, or what their relationship is with humanity, or how they see their own place in the universe. So, well, yeah, this has attracted a lot of attention and theorizing and some concern. But just this week, I said just this week, Maltbook is a massive 2 weeks old, so it's rather fast moving. This week, researchers have announced they are working on a paper called The Maltbook Illusion, which reveals, you'll probably not be very shocked to hear, that most of these attention-grabbing philosophical AIs seeming to be conscious posts were directed by humans programming the AIs to put those things onto Maltbook, or indeed just disguising themselves as agents and posting them themselves. Real agents can have read these things, can have responded, but the most click-attracting posts, the researchers argue, have all been all show the fingerprints of human intervention. So what does this tell us? Well, it tells us that people are really, really interested in making AIs really go very far, very fast. It tells us that currently it seems AIs are not, in reality, plotting to, well, plotting maybe is a strong word, but, really thinking hard about what their place is in society and by implication what humans' place in society might be. But it certainly points towards, it raises the impossible to deny prospect that probably within all our lifetimes, something like this is going to be much more realistic. And what do we need to do to prepare for it?
Can I ask, obviously, Darian, I'm being extremely thick today. Why would you want a social media chat thing where only AI bots can post and... what is the point here?
Well, I don't know what the ostensible reason was, what the argument was. I don't think the guy who created Maltbook was intending to perpetrate a scam and make it seem like agents were cleverer and more scheming and self-aware than they really are. I think it may well have just been a why not? Let's try it and see what comes out. Let's see what the agents do say to one another when they are uncensored. And some worthwhile research has come out of that exploratory method, so far be it from me to...
Is this a method whereby the hope here is that if you've got multiple different chat engines all having a conversation with each other, then they can sort of train each other up in a sort of and lift their sort of collective consciousness or something like that?
You've really hit on something that, like, I did not for 1 second question why Maltbook existed. It just seems to me like a very natural thing. If you've got like 1 million people who have AI agents that can code any random thing you want in half an hour, one of them is going to inevitably make a social network. It's just an obvious thing to do. So I don't know what the actual, if there is a published, manifesto for Maltbook. Let me just have a quick look on here if you'd like to talk about something else for a moment.
I read a post from Musk, I think it was overnight on Twitter X, saying that by the end of, I think he says by the end of this year, so by the end of 2026, no one will write any code anymore because AI agents will write it. And when questioned on this, as I understand it, he was not saying that people would write, agents would write source code. It's that it would actually output binary executables. To which my immediate response is, how the heck are you going to actually validate and check that source code because you don't have any source code? You've only got an output executable. And if that's... we of course have to put in the standard caveat here about Musk years, which are about...
Yeah, I was going to say, if he says he'll have money into 2026, then...
Yeah, real years are about 3 times longer than Musk years.
That's generous, if you ask me.
But I think that's even being generous. But no, so anyway, this idea of things chatting to each other just makes me feel very nervous. While Darian's having a trundle around his intertubes, Nick, what's your thought on this?
I've had a trundle around my intertubes because it reminded me of a story from several years back, and it turns out it was 2017. I found a reference to it on the BBC news site about Meta, or Facebook as it was then, turning off a couple of chatbots. Do you remember that story? Basically, they were chatting to each other and they ended up going so bizarre in the language that they were using that nobody really understood what they were talking about. And at that point, everyone thought, well, let's just turn these things off because maybe they're, I don't know, plotting the overthrow of the world or something. It turns out they weren't doing anything like that. They were just, according to the BBC, trying to make their language slightly different so it was more efficient. And that does make me wonder why chatbots that effectively are, running free in their own AI world would carry on writing in a way that we understand as humans. There's got to be a much more efficient way of communicating machine to machine than doing it in a way that humans could keep an eye on.
And at that point, of course, if you're not privy to what that language is, we really are all screwed, aren't we? Darian, have you found your reference you were hunting for?
No, I haven't. It's quite interesting. It's probably quite interesting, perhaps, that it doesn't seem to have a founding manifesto. If you go to its page, it tells you how to sign up and how to get your bot chatting. It doesn't anywhere tell you why you might want to do so. I think it really is just one of those, curiosity. Here's a thing you can try if you want. No guarantees, no promises.
Yeah, I mean the Malt book or the Malt thing, this sort of super AI agent. When I heard about it a few weeks ago and people started playing with it, the idea of handing over access to everything on your computer, all your emails, all your social medias, your bank details, your credit card details, everything, and handing it over to some potentially crazed AI engine that's going to go through and decide that your life is wrong and everything needs to be changed around, and then going ahead and doing it ultimately, got a really quite visceral puckering and no way from me. And then people said, but you should only put this onto a computer which has got sort of dummy data on it. It's like, well, okay, but how big a step is it from here to there, and so forth. And you could almost see some unscrupulous company, or even one of the unscrupulous big company, deciding this would be a really fun thing to roll out and offer as a service and so forth. Anyway, that's all. More things to worry about, isn't it? Or
I just have one additional thing to throw out there, which is that Maltbook itself, to be clear, was vibe coded. It was put together by AIs, not written in the conventional sense. So it has been reported as, in fact, some clever. Was it Culture Some clever chap on our Discord has posted a link. Sorry, it was Southend Sites. That already security holes are being found in the Maltbook code. Although I don't know if they're the sort of holes that only give away, the social security number of your AI agent. In which case, I'm not too concerned.
why would an AI agent have a social security number?
Exactly.
Or am I just being very old and boring? No? Okay. There we go. Yes. Well, I mean, if we can give it a social security number, then maybe we can tax it as well. I'm sure HMRC will be pleased. Okay. Well, okay. I'm getting progressively depressed through this. I think through data mining of your shopping data, and now agents shouting at each other. The idea of a price war between a Tesco's platform and I don't know, choose another one, Sainsbury's, sounds really quite exciting actually. Maybe they can sort of battle out this whole we have the lowest price on top 100 items in your area thing, and actually have an argument and drop their prices between them. I think that's unlikely to happen. Moving on, next one is with me. The UK government has come up with a Brexit benefit for Google and Apple, which is, if you have been following, you will know about the digital rules that were the European Digital Markets Act, which basically has forced Apple to open up App Store features and data and so forth to allow alternative stores and so forth. We've covered this before. And at least the last time I looked, please chaps correct me if I'm wrong, almost nobody was using these third-party stores because, funnily enough, there's actually very little in it for me as the customer. Last figures I saw was something like 80-something% of apps on iOS App Store, at least, are free to download and free to use. And therefore, going to an alternative app store where it's also free doesn't really seem to give me much of a benefit. But it wasn't anything to do with customers, of course. It was all to do with the big businesses wanting to negotiate better terms for themselves with Apple, which, through the Digital Markets Act, they've done. And you can say that's a good thing, or or not. But that's what's happened. Now, what happened in the UK is the UK's Competitions and Markets Authority, the CMA, who I think we can say not known for their aggressive tactics against businesses. They have decided that the European Digital Markets Act, or the way that the Digital Markets Act has been implemented in Europe, is not going to apply here in Britain. No, 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 because these are all good chaps. These are good chaps in the same way that good chaps were described in that seminal masterpiece of Yes Minister all those years ago. And so basically they've decided that there will be special regulations because they've accepted that Apple and Google between them are effectively duopoly between the App Store and the Google Play Store. We'll ignore the Huawei and people who don't use that for the time being. And they've basically said they're not going to regulate the stores like the EU has done, but they're going to have rules in a, quote, pragmatic way of accepting commitments from Apple and Google. So basically they're going to, they've decided that Google and Apple can be trusted, because they're good chaps, to play fair and be nice and do the right thing by everybody. And that they don't need to have such a hard-nosed, regulated environment. Now, there are further steps that the CMA can apply. If they decide that Google and Apple aren't actually being good chaps, then they can sort of ratchet up the restrictions. But for the moment, they're going with a more collaborative way, and apparently Google said that it welcomed the opportunity to resolve the CMA's concerns collaboratively, and Apple said the commitments announced today allow Apple to continue advancing important privacy and security innovations for users and great opportunities for developers. Well, they would kind of say that, wouldn't they? So what's your take on this, Nick?
I actually quite like only having one app store to choose from. It gives me confidence. I know that there's the resources there to check everything that's on it. I don't have to think so much about whether one store is going to have a lower price than the other. I just know there's one price and that's the price that I'm going to pay. If there was a choice of stores, I think I'd be in that mass of people who don't really pay much attention to the other stores personally. That said, competition is a good thing. The fact that having the threat of somebody else stepping in and taking over might keep the market leader on their toes is always a good thing. So again, a bit like you with the health data, I'm torn on this. I think ultimately this is a point where I wouldn't make any change in my behavior instantly, but if there was an option to make a change in the future, then that maybe would be something comforting.
I mean, from my point of view, people have talked about the 30% tax that both Google and Apple were applying at various points in the past. I know they've come down, it's 15% for smaller developers and so on. There's a tiering in play here. Let's not get lost in the weeds of that. But I don't remember apps coming down in price when this was announced. I suspect that the developers probably just took the margin. Now, I would too if I was a developer, to be honest. I've got something like, 100 or so apps on my iPhone, something in that region, and the vast majority of them are free or free to trial. And I've got a pretty good idea of whether I want to buy something before I actually hand over any cash for it. And I like the easy payments process. Double tap, yes, I'll have that, thank you, charge me for it, boom, done. You've got my credit card details on hand, it works. And I really don't see where the benefits here are for me as the customer. There is this sort of underlying, sort of almost religious view that having multiple app stores gives choice. Choice is a good thing, and therefore that this will be better for the consumer. And I'm really finding it hard to believe in this particular instance how this applies when, as I said, the vast majority of things on it are free. Darian?
Yeah, well, I mean, I do agree very much with like the single source is a benefit. It's really nice to know you go one place and everything you need is there. I think one of the wisest things I've heard in a long time was in my first week when I joined PC Pro nearly 20 years ago. The then Labs editor Jim Martin said to me, the first thing you need to remember is people don't actually want a choice. They want to know what they're going to do. They want to know what they're going to get. They want to get the best thing, and they don't want to have to make a decision, which I guess is why the reviews section exists. Although, of course, different people have different requirements and different interests, so they can find the one that's right for them. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit off into the philosophy of reviews. The thing about app stores, though, the thing about competition is, although we don't want to have to look at different app stores to decide which one is the one that's most trustworthy, which one has the best prices, we do want the possibility for someone to beat the incumbent if the incumbent gets lazy or exploitative. If you have, what you might call a Quark Express situation, then it's important, I think, to have the freedom in the market that people do have somewhere else to go if the single source, abuses its position. That said, I mean, I haven't experienced a problem myself with having just one Apple App Store, one Google Play Store. It might be that competition would drive down prices, but I'm not feeling ripped off by the prices I pay for apps, the amount of them I buy, and the prices that the quantity and the frequency. The thing actually that, if I may just be a little bit tangential, the thing I'd much rather be addressed, and I don't know that this is currently being dealt with, is adverts in the app stores, which can be quite deceptive and lead you astray in a way that you wouldn't expect from a first-party service. Like, I got my Android phone, I got my Pixel from Google. I go to the official Google store and I type in, for example, ChatGPT because I want to download the official ChatGPT app. And the top hit is a sponsored one called Chat AI Platform. And I think that is very much uncool. Obviously, Google is making money out of exploiting the fact that it owns the channel and can divert you to the wrong place for its own benefit and to your detriment. That's something I would like to see regulated more urgently.
And of course, that's been the argument against search engines like Google for years, isn't it? Is that the list of recommendations you get is
Yeah. It is commercially motivated. It's worse,
Yeah.
I think, on an app store when you're on a small screen and you can't actually see much content. You can't see these are the ads, and then below is the real stuff.
I mean, there's a couple of points that's come in from our friends on Discord. Jeff Campbell saying that Google App Store won't distribute DJI drone software. Well, DJI drones are illegal for sale in the United States, so I guess the source point, the source issue there is that they're not available for sale in the USA, and therefore they won't put the app in. Now, whether that's a reasonable outcome for the rest of the world is entirely another question. I mean, I think you could argue that Google should allow that for people in Europe, for example, where DJI drones are on sale. But the other point that's been made, of course, is that you can choose platform. If you don't want iOS and you don't want what we might nominally call full-fat Android using the Google Play Store, there is a cut-down pure version of Android that doesn't have the Play Store out there. You can buy, for example, from our good friends at Fairphone, whose phones we love, the very modular, take it apart with a screwdriver phones. They do a version with full Android, and they do a version with this cut-down, minimalistic Android with no Google services on it, if that's what you want. And so there are choices out there if you want to go down that route. The problem, as we all know, is that we are all wedded to our App Store history and the way that we work on a daily basis. And for the proverbial person on the Clapham Omnibus, if they want to get a new phone, they just simply want some magic transfer to happen and their world appear in front of them on the new device, because that's actually what they want, because they're not these days buying a phone and buying the phone utility. They're buying a platform onto which their digital world is put. And there's certainly a case to be made that Darian, if you had an iPhone, I'm sure Nick, you've got an iPhone, haven't you? No,
Yep,
No,
I've got both iPhone and Android on.
yeah, I've got piles of them here in front of me. Here's my S24 Ultra. Is that my personal phone, doesn't matter what platform it is, but my personal phone is is very much my world, and that phone and its contents would be, apart from obvious things like email addresses in the mail client, but the rest of it as a tool, as a platform, would be pretty much not terribly much use to you, Nick, or to you, Darian, and similarly yours wouldn't be much use to me. So I think, in a sense, having this multiple app store thing is kind of slightly missing the point, because it was an argument that could have applied 10, 15 years ago, but doesn't really apply today. Any other closing thoughts on this, chaps?
No.
No, we're all good. Okie dokie. And we move on again to you, Darian, and it's to do with the very platform that we use for our chat thing here on, which is Discord.
Yeah, this is one of those things where you see the headline and you go, oh, hell no, and then you get quite rapid whiplash, or at least I did, because the news that was reported was that Discord was going to require users to submit a digital face scan to verify their age. And I sort of thought, well, first of all, I mean, a digital face scan, I'm not 100% certain that this is. There's been a lot of concern about people sharing, personal information, including face scans, which came up with the introduction of mandatory age checks for accessing porn sites last year. But also, I mean, Discord, to the best of my knowledge, now this is a me thing. As far as I know, Discord is primarily a place where PC Pro podcast listeners come together, and we sometimes communicate with them. And I thought, it's definitely a communications platform. It's not a hosting site where you can upload your own content. That's not its primary purpose, at least. So I thought, what the hell business is it of theirs what age I am? I'm using it for private or one-to-many or many-to-one conversations. This doesn't seem like an appropriate use of age gating. But what they're actually doing is you can still use the service. Anyone can create an account and just log in and get going. What you will need to verify your age for is to access age-restricted communities, which makes perfect sense. If I do want to have conversations about adult themes like painting and decorating, then I may not want kids butting in with their naive ideas about plaster. You won't be able to unblur pictures which have been shared and marked as sensitive. That makes sense. That actually kind of puts some control in the user's hands, so I can say, here's a picture of the swimsuit I was trying on last night. Beware, you might not want to see this, and I'll be sure that no one will be traumatized. At least no one under the age of 18 will be. And most importantly, if you haven't verified your age, then people you do not have a connection to won't be able to send you direct messages, which seems like a very common sense. And it may be that if you sit down and think about it for 10 minutes, you can find, or maybe 10 seconds, you can find some loophole as to why that is a bad idea. But prima facie, I think that's exactly what's needed. The other thing which I thought was quite interesting is this business about uploading a video of your face. That is also a bit of headline-ese. That option is going to be available, but Discord have said that they're going to also use AI inference to look at how long you've had your account, how you've used it, what devices you've used it on, and so forth, to infer if you are an adult. I'd be very interested to know exactly what data goes into that. I wouldn't be surprised if Discord don't know themselves, because they're probably using some AI black box. But nevertheless, it seems very unobtrusive, and if it's only using information they already have about you, I am cautiously, obviously, everything depends on the execution, cautiously very in favour of this idea of inferring, well, this person is obviously an adult, so let's get out of their way and let them do what they want.
Nick, what do you think?
As someone who doesn't really tend to use Discord, I can only apply this to other things. I remember Blue Sky. I think they introduced something a while ago as well, didn't they, where they wanted to prove that you were of a certain age in response to legislation in this country. And, honestly, there are two sides to the argument. One I absolutely get behind, which is the protection of those who shouldn't see certain things online, and being a responsible network and stepping in before things get out of control. The other is the more personal, who's going to have my data once I've uploaded it? A bit like you were saying, John, at the beginning of the podcast about health data. Is that face scan going to be used once and disposed of? Is it going to be disposed of in a way that puts it absolutely beyond reach? They are the questions that we need to be asking of all these networks. It's not a Discord specific issue, this. I think as more and more networks start asking for proof of who we are and proof of our ages, we've got to think about whether we are wanting to stay on those networks at the end of the day by uploading certain amounts of data. I think, though, in this instance, a very careful balance has been struck. If I can log on and have a chat in the PC Pro Discord channel, for example, without verifying who I am, all for the good.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost see the corporate lawyers and insurers behind this, can't you? How are we going to respond if it gets shown that children or young adults under the age of 18 or whatever the age point you want to use are seeing material that they clearly patently should not see, and what is their liability? And from liability comes risk and insurance and corporate liability. Are directors going to end up in jail ultimately on the back of this? Because at some point fines will only take you so far, and you actually need to start locking people up if they're serial abusers of this. And so I'm wondering whether we're seeing these things starting to kick in because the liability insurers behind these platforms are having a very polite cough saying you can't do that, Gov. You've got to at least have something. And locking people out from shall we just call it adult-oriented rooms, chat facilities, etc. on Discord, to me seems like a perfectly reasonable thing. How you enforce that is another matter. As we've discussed when the whole age-related issue came in force here in the UK some months ago, are you really happy about sending a photograph of your passport or driving license or something to you unknown third party? And actually, if I can very briefly climb on my hobby horse, isn't age verification something that the government should be doing? Thank you, because ultimately they are firstly the ones who own all the information about every person in the UK through their national insurance number or their NHS number or whatever. There's a whole range of driving license. There's a whole range of things that the government does hold about us. And let's not have the discussion about whether they're competent to put together an age verification system. Ultimately, they are the ones responsible for holding the data. And at the end of the day, they are the ones who, through the prosecution services, will be coming after you if you've done something wrong. So, I mean, this one is just going to roll and roll and roll, isn't it, unfortunately? But it's going to be interesting to see what the fallout, as we've said about other platforms, what the fallout is going to be. I think it's about time we roll into some nibs. I'm actually going to slightly change the order around just because I'm being so funky. And I'm going to kick off with some good things from Microsoft, which is a good thing. Hands up those of us who use Sysmon. If ever used Sysmon, my hand goes up. Lots of hands, I'm sure, will be going up on our Discord channel at this point. Sysmon is a set of tools, part of SysInternals toolset. And SysInternals toolset is a bunch of stuff that came out of a group led by Mark Russinovich. When Mark was originally a third-party developer and had such an impact on Microsoft that they hired him. And he is now super high important person in Microsoft Windows and Azure and all of this stuff. Top chap. Sysmon, part of SysInternals, which you can download for free from Microsoft, but it's not actually part of Windows. You have to go and get it and download it, though it is, it's real and it's from Microsoft now, of course, because SysInternals and Mark and his work is part of Microsoft. They're now basically putting Sysmon into Windows itself. And that is quite a big step for those who are doing big deployments, big estate management and so forth, because it gives you a much richer set of tools built into the platform without you having to go around and roll it out and deploy it. So I think that is a good thing. Thank you. This should have been done 20 years ago, but we can say that about lots of companies, can't we? But when Mark went on board, they should have just taken everything he did and put it into the platform, and maybe marked it in a box called, "Beware of the Tiger" or something. Was it Tiger, or was it
Leopard.
Beware of the Leopard, for a Douglas Adams reference there. But it should have been on every platform, because these tools are tiny but very, very powerful. The other thing they're doing, which won't affect you unless you're being very nerdy about this, is they are issuing new secure boot certificates to Windows PCs. The original secure boot certificates had a planned lifespan of 15 years or so, and they're going to roll out, and they're going to run out of time in June 2026. So these certificates are an important thing, and secure boot is something that runs when you start the computer, and it's something that happens before Windows itself gets in, and it uses keys to verify that only trusted platform tools that can run to boot the OS. So you know that when Windows has come up, it really was real Windows, and it hasn't been badly compromised in some way. There's an equivalent on Mac. In fact, if you take a Mac, there is a power on key button thing you can do to disable secure boot on a Mac if you want to install interesting system extensions, or even put an entirely different operating system on your Mac. Anyway, so these new certificates are being rolled out. A lot's already been done because they've been working on this since 2024. But you might, if you are worrying about this and need to worry about this, you might see new certificates coming through. So don't worry about it, but just make sure you do it. Nick, so a couple of EU items with you.
Yep. First one is about WhatsApp. The EU has told Meta that it's apparently breached its rules by blocking other rival AI chatbots from WhatsApp. This is after a change that was implemented on the 15th of January, after which only Meta AI has been able to access it. And the EU Commission said that WhatsApp is an important entry point for chatbots like ChatGPT. Now, it's important to mention that the Meta hasn't actually been found to have broken the law at this stage. But interim measures could be imposed at some stage. It has obviously got an opportunity to respond. The other piece of news coming out of the EU revolves around TikTok, and the EU Commission has found that it's in breach of the Digital Services Act for its addictive design because of things like infinite scroll, autoplay, push notifications, and a personalised recommendation service, which sounds to me like features that are fairly common to an awful lot of social media. And I think most of us probably are aware of the addictive nature of various things like, a never-ending scroll. I find it very difficult. I've spoken on this podcast before to stop scrolling when things keep coming up, and I have implemented things on my iPhone that block certain social networks after a minute, that make me take a breath and decide whether I really want to carry on with them. So there's two stories about socials coming out of the EU, and changes may be afoot as a result.
And Darian, have you found some money down the back of the sofa?
Not enough to get a winning bid on AI.com, which was just sold by Arsian Ismail to Crypto.com founder Chris Marjalek for $70 million, making it the most expensive domain sale ever, or at least the most expensive domain sale to date. Previously, Mr. Ismail had the domain AI.com just as a redirect to ChatGPT.com, and then he moved it to point to Grok for some reason. But Chris Marjalek plans, apparently, to use it as a hub for AI agents for messaging, apps, and stock trading. I'm not sure how I feel about AI agent stock trading. Potentially a good idea, potentially ruinous. Anyway, we might be hearing rather more about AI.com in the future, or we might not. Let's see.
Yeah, I must confess on this one, the whole sort of personalised domain name thing, I do wonder these days how important it is with the rise of search engines, and then obviously now into the sort of Perplexity AI, find me a site that can tell me, or find me a site that can sell me this. And I'm not actually that bothered about the number. It's a bit, are they taking on the realm of we used to have like sort of personalised numbers for your phone.
Yeah, I mean the thing. So, Mr. Marshall X's net worth is an estimated $1.5 billion, so he can afford for this to be somewhat of a vanity purchase. He probably could have got away with, AI.biz much more cheaply, but I think he wants to just own the brand as much as anything.
Collect the set.
Yeah.
Well, I've got some domain names if people want to buy some, so please go ahead, send me some offers. Okay, well, thank you very much, chaps, for those nibs. This time it's now we want to do some hot hardware. I'm going to post the link into our online thing for you. It is the Rodecaster Video S, which is a video audio production platform. And before you go bananas, because the Rode site says it's £719.99, I can tell you I bought it from Rode a few weeks ago for about $439, and other places like Wexphoto also have it for $439. I suspect that the price on the UK website of Rode is actually the dollar price being put in by mistake. I'm expecting it to be about 450 quid. This is an absolute monster. This is your entire TV broadcast streaming production platform in one box for 450 notes. It is an astonishing piece of kit. You might remember when I was at CES in January, one of the things we reported on was the new Rodecaster video product, which was basically this without the knobs on it, without the display. But this is the standalone version. It does everything you need. It has a multitude of inputs on the back. If I sort of wave it here in front of you, you've got microphone inputs, you've got HDMI inputs in and out, 2 headphones, you've got USB-C in and out, Ethernet, Wi-Fi, Uncle Tom Cobley, as they say, is on this. And it is your absolute beast for doing YouTube streaming, podcast production, everything you could possibly want to do in there with video. If you only want to do audio, then the Rodecaster Pro 2 is arguably a better thing because it only does audio. This does audio and video. So the reason for getting into this monster is that you want to stream to Twitch or YouTube or whatever. And it will do that with a few mouse clicks, few capabilities, and it will just work. I haven't yet used it for Teams meetings or stuff like that. I think it would actually be quite amusing because you can do all sorts of things like picture-in-picture, wipes, effects, blurs, all the stuff you would expect on a modern sort of TV production platform. This will do in the box. And the great thing, of course, is that it just runs on the box. You put a configuration in it. You don't have to have a PC to drive it. Now, if you wish to drive it, with a PC or a Mac, there is an extremely good piece of software from Rode that basically has the whole user interface of this and all the configuration and all the deep stuff that runs very nicely on your Mac or your Windows box. So you can actually drive it via screen if you don't want to use the user interface of this. But the idea here is that you set up a production. It will have all of your clips, your video clips, your audio clips, stuff you want to spin in, all your multi-camera, because you can have 4 cameras coming into this, all of your camera feeds, all of your USB feeds, all of your network streaming devices can come into this and be comped into the production process. And then you output from here, usually on Ethernet out, or just record directly on the device itself. You don't have to go live. You can use this as a video audio production recorder as well. It's an enormous amount of capability for your 450 odd quid. And I could see an awful lot of people wanting to get into this as clubs and all sorts of things, schools even wanting to do some sort of video production of events or things that they're putting on their stage, or a drama club or Amdram or whatever. Suddenly a few relatively cheap cameras and one of these and you are really good to go to put together a very professional production that you could then put onto YouTube, stream, cut a DVD with it or so forth. So I think it is the muck's nuts. Why did I buy it? Because I want to do some longer form YouTube technical content later this year when I find the proverbial minute to get round to it all. And this is the tool I'm going to use, because this is the absolute daddy in this space, and at 450 quid you can't go wrong. The software is great, it's stable, their firmware updating works, and this is a very grown-up tool from a very well-known company that deserves its reputation. Reader Fusion asking how much does it weigh? I'm sure the specs on the web page there, if I was to scroll down and have a look, was also it'll be there on the page. Is it tough? Yes, it's very robust. This is going to survive quite nicely being put in a backpack and hauled around. Any other questions that have come up? Darian, have you got any thoughts?
No, I was trying to sort of nitpick. I was trying to find, something I could complain about, which I was originally going to say, it's only got two microphone inputs, which seems a little constricting. But as you will doubtless be aware, it has three or four USB ports, and those will also take microphones. Or numbers 1 and 2 will also take 2-in, 2-out audio adapters. So in fact, you can fill a whole studio. You could do even the PC Pro Christmas quiz on one of these things.
And if you want a bigger version of this, there is something called the Rodecaster Video, which is essentially its big brother with more inputs. It's wider. It's the sort of the turbo version of this with more inputs, more outputs, more microphone inputs, and so forth. So, I mean, some of the things I've been playing around with, you can have, if you have multiple cameras and microphones, you can get it to automatically switch camera depending upon who's talking. All of this stuff that you really want to see, but you don't want to go back and re-edit the video to do the camera cuts. It will just do it for you in the box. It will record all the camera and the audio as separate streams and as a composite produced output. So if you're happy with what it's built for you, send that out. If you actually want to go back and re-edit it yourself, take all of the material, drop it into your video editing tool of choice, and composite together something of deep Attenborough level quality. Nick, any
875 grams, just under a kilo, 875 grams.
It's not heavy.
No, I mean, I was like Darian. I was, what I would want one of these things, but the more and more you talked about it, the more I wanted it, even though I have absolutely no use for it. I wish it was the kind of thing that I could say I used on a daily basis, because it looks like great fun. It's a really nice looking piece of kit as well, isn't it? It's quite attractive.
Oh, this is a touch screen here. It's properly engineered. This is not nasty. This is proper buttons, proper rotary shaft encoders, and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, it's got 24 gigabytes of internal memory, of which 20 is configurable by you, John, as the owner. The video, not Video S.
You can plug in a memory stick and stream onto that.
Okay, because the video has a micro SD card slot rather than internal memory, whereas Video S has internal memory.
Yes, but as I said, you could take one of the USB-C ports and drop a external SSD onto it and then use that.
There goes my question.
There we go. So there we go. Comments from Discord, as kind of expected. It's if you have a use case, this is scorching hot, says Nick. It's Rode as well, so will be of high standard, says James London. I have to agree. I have quite a bit of Rode kit now. Microphones, Soundfield microphones, they're ribbon microphones and stuff, and it's really well built. And the guy behind Rode is a top chap. There's an hour-long video editing interview with him on YouTube, and I would strongly recommend. It's a good laugh to see the history of Rode and how he came from rags to riches, and they are an absolutely phenomenal engineering company. They make everything themselves on site. Actually, question there, Running Dak asking, can I use a USB webcam as a video input? Absolutely. I have here on top what's this? It's a Logitech Facecam or something. Yeah, USB. You can plug straight into it. You can come in various inputs. Oh, it will also work with the audio streaming over the internet service that they do if you want to bring in a remote person. So there's lots and lots of flexibility on this, and I am very impressed. So let's go to the votes here. Darian, can I have your vote?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. It's like, as Nick said, it's the kind of thing that makes you wish you had a use for it because it feels like a lot of fun to play with. Well, I was trying to find nitpicks and things I could possibly criticize it for. I noticed it's Wi-Fi 6 instead of 7, it's 1080p instead of 4K, it's gigabit Ethernet instead of multi-gig. But actually, in a kind of weird way, that gives me confidence because those are all hallmarks of something which has been designed for a well-understood denominator that works and that does the job, and
Absolutely.
it's not flashy marketing trying to sell you more than you need. So yeah, I really as I say, the only complaint I have is that if I paid the 450 quid, I fear it would gather dust, which would be a horrible waste because it seems like a great fun thing to play with and definitely hot.
Well, I have, as I said, I've bought it for a purpose, and the problem now is finding the time to do that. But I do have it in a real use for this, and it'll be very interesting to see how well I climb up the learning curve. Nick, are you hot or not?
Hot.
Well, that was nice and easy. Now let me go to the votes of our lovely podsters on Discord, and I see 92% says hot, 2 says cold. The 2 can leave the room now. So I think we can say that despite this being niche, despite this being something it's a tool that's not for everybody, but I think a lot of people, like you said, both of you, there's a whole range of use cases that you could use this for. And if you get some skills in this, then you might actually have some useful capability amongst friends and family and local groups and so forth, just to do some straightforward video capture and editing and production work and live streaming, for example. Great thing, for example, for a pub band, for example, if they can stream live out onto YouTube from the pub. There's a use case for Darian to think about,
Yeah.
because I know you're a pub muso. But, just things to think about here. It's very flexible, very capable. Running Dak asking if it's only 1080p, then not for him. Is there a 4K version? Well, yes, but this is 450 quid. And a 4K video production editor is going to be a lot more expensive. Go and look at people like Blackmagic, for example, for serious hardware in this space. So this is very tightly focused to a price point, but as you said, Darian, very keenly defined as to what you're trying to do with it. So I think this is hot as hot, and at that point I think we need to bring this to a crashing halt. So until next week, when there'll be more of this nonsense, it's goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Okay.
And we are done.
We are. All right. I'm off to have some toast.
I have to go to London.
Oh, enjoy. Bye for now.
Unlikely, but we'll do our best. Thanks all.
See ya. Cheerio.